Hello there and welcome to this video. Today we're going to be talking about a cryptocurrency which has been very hotly discussed and in the news all over the cryptocurrency space at the moment. This is of course IOTA. Now just so we can get straight into it, I just want to discuss what we're doing in this video, and if you haven't seen any of my videos before, what I do is I put each heading that I've got in this current slide and I'll put a timestamp next to them in the description box, so if you only want to see a specific part of the video, you can just click on it and go to that certain point in time. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at what is IOTA, then how does it work, the features of it, why is it useful, the community and team behind it, where you buy and store it, the future of IOTA, and then a little bit of technical analysis to cap things off. And I also want to preface this video by saying that I'm not a financial advisor and this isn't financial advice. This is just educational, and you should only use this as one source of reference when deciding whether you want to invest in this cryptocurrency or not. So without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so to start off, we're going to be talking about what is IOTA. And well, for those who don't know, IOTA is a new distributed ledger technology which has been designed to fulfill the role as the backbone for the Internet of Things, or the IoT. And we'll get into the Internet of Things in just a second. It has been named the third generation cryptocurrency, or a third generation cryptocurrency, because it doesn't use blockchain technology and instead uses a type of directed acyclic graph, or DAG, which is known as the Tangle. IOTA is a cryptocurrency which, milli-IOTA more commonly, is the cryptocurrency which is utilized on the Tangle network. The coins we have circulating currently, we have quite a few coins, nearly 2.8 billion in circulation at the moment, with a max of 2.8 billion as well, milli-IOTA that is. So there's, I think the actual amount of IOTA itself is in the penta range, but I couldn't calculate that off the top of my head. So you might be asking, why is there so many coins? Like Bitcoin has only 21 million coins. Why would this have so many coins? Because it just destroys the value. Well, for the first reason, IOTA is not a decentralized currency, and it is a utility token which is used across the network. And as I'll explain soon, IOTA, one of the things it does, it transacts very small amounts of value for very small amounts of data. And this is a very key concept of IOTA and why it has so many coins. Now, the transaction time for IOTA is currently around 30 seconds to 3 minutes. It changes a bit, but it will decrease as the network grows in size. So as the Tangle gets bigger, the IOTA network speeds up, and the converse as well. And this will happen to the point where once it gets big enough, we will have instant transactions on the IOTA network. And also the fees on the network are zero. So how does it work? Well, just like I said, it uses a technology known as a Tangle. And to simply put, the IoT is a concept of basically connecting devices with on and off switches to the internet and or to each other. This includes everything like which we have in our daily lives, like cell phones and other computers, coffee makers and other kitchen appliances, cleaners, washing machines, headphones, lamps, wearable devices, and basically anything else you can think of which has a switch. This also applies to like specific components of machines, for example, a jet engine of an airplane or a drill of an oil rig. The relationship will be between people to people, things, people to things, and things to things being machines. The IOTA currency is used as the fuel for transacting functions across the network, just like I said before. Each of the, you can see behind me, I've got this sort of picture here with all these lines and all these dots. And this is a representation of a Tangle. And so, I don't know why I put white dots, but it should be purple or green dots. And each of these dots represents a transaction over the IOTA network, or over the Tangle. And in order to approve a transaction, the person or the transaction needs to approve the two previous transactions. And so the green lines represent verifications. And so that way we can have fees, no fees on the network, I should say, because the transactions are actually doing the proof of work. They're actually doing the work, the network's work for it. What this does, we have in IOTA, we have the two sort of transactions that each transaction validates and verifies, but then there is also a little bit of proof of work involved to protect against spam or Sybil attacks. And both of these attacks require that the attacker issues a huge volume of transactions. With the proof of work in place, however, each transaction requires some sacrificing of processing power. It's not that much, it's only a real little bit, but this makes it a lot harder and less attractive to generate a number of transactions, the number of transactions that an attacker would need to disrupt the system. Also, the proof of work is minimal, so it does not create a large energy and cost demands, just like how people see Bitcoin, how it uses so much energy for its proof of work because it's running at a max level. They're trying to, because they have a financial incentive in Bitcoin, they're trying to push that proof of work to the max and get as much out of it as they can. But with IOTA, it is just very minimal. It's basically the minimal amount that is needed to secure the network, so it's not that intensive. Also, just like I said before, due to the participation across the network, IOTA does not need fees. It's sort of you contribute and then get your reward by contributing. And the absence of these fees means IOTA is very suitable for microtransactions and nanotransactions. So just very, very small transactions. And this is what I meant before about the number of coins. So we want a lot of coins so that we can process these very tiny amounts. So some features of IOTA. The first one is the coordinator. And this is a sort of a bit of a debated one among the community. Because the network is not yet operating at like a large scale, and the transaction volume is still pretty low, it relies on something called the coordinator, and nobody really knows what it is except the developers and the team, but it's something which protects the network against Sybil attacks and spam attacks, and it's sort of like the training wheels of the IOTA network. So once the network grows to a large enough capacity when it can support itself and stand on its own legs, the coordinator will be removed, but between then and now, the coordinator will run to protect the network. And just like I said, it's been pretty debated because people think that because it's not public, it's pretty centralized. But my sort of, I guess, an argument to this would be that one, obviously we do need the network to be secured and be safe, but two, we are nowhere near mass adoption yet, so we don't really necessarily need the full decentralization of every cryptocurrency, because every time someone sees something like this, they just pick it apart because it's not fully decentralized or something, but they don't think that the network is only just getting started and we are nowhere near mass adoption. So you just got to keep that in mind and have a bit of a more open and wider view of it. And the IOTA team say that the coordinator helps to help against 34% attacks, which is also known as 51% attacks. Traditionally, they're called 51% attacks, but you only really need 34% of the processing power to take over a network in a traditional blockchain. But the thing is with IOTA, even if someone did buy out so many chips to gain 34% of the network's hash power, what happens is they could only access a few sort of little microtransactions of the network. And this is because when they join with all that hash power, they have to first get the hash power, the 34% of the network hash power, but then they have to access the 34% of the network. And what happens is when you are accessing more and more of the network, you're connecting to the tangle, and what this is actually doing is you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot, because you're connecting to the tangle and the more you connect to the tangle, the stronger the tangle gets. And so you're technically using your hash power against you. So this is a really cool thing that I like about IOTA. And some other features, curl and gin. So the proof of work algorithm, like I said before, on IOTA is called curl, and employs ternary logic, which means information is stored in 3 states as opposed to traditional 2 binary logic, and it provides certain type of performance benefits over traditional logic, but it is not quite practical for manufacture of processors and little things which utilize IoT at the moment, that is. And Gin appears to be working on a processor which is intended for the use of Internet of Things. So these are companies, like Gin is a company, and several of the IOTA team members have been working with them and sort of overseeing its development. And the goal of the Gin project is that it can be integrated into the Internet of Things devices and sort of act as a medium by which it does that. One of the other justifications for curl is that it introduces something called Winternitz one-time signature schemes, and these are just sort of a theoretical yet, because quantum computing is not out yet, but it is sort of a way to quantum proof the tangle against quantum computers, basically. So this is something which they haven't really been working on, but they will be working on in the future as quantum computers become more within reach. Some other features of IOTA include flash channels, and these are basically, if you're familiar with Lightning networks and Lightning network payment channels, these are basically the same thing but for a tangle. And these are actually slightly a little bit better because you don't have the fees to set up and close payment channels, and they also allow you to do nano transactions as well as micro transactions. So that's a really good thing for IOTA. And if you want to transact high volumes of IOTA, if you want to do this, it'll cause bottlenecks on the network. And so what you can do, you can use flash channels and use multiple parties to deposit equal amounts of IOTA into a multi-sig account. And so this multi-sig requires signatures of and the verification of multiple people's multiple parties, if you didn't know. And everyone has to agree on this, and if everyone signs it and verifies it, it will go through. However, if not everyone signs it, the funds will be sent back to their original owners. In this way, independent groups can process high volumes of transactions by quickly minimizing their interaction with the tangle and causing bottlenecks on the network. So why is it useful? Well, first of all, like I said, it's got 0 transaction fees, which is really good for the use of IoT devices because they're transacting data so much. It's constant feedback and constant communication. The ability for viable micro plus nano transactions is pretty much sort of connected to that last point. So it allows for viable connection and communication between IoT devices. Also, the other thing which is also connected to that is instant transactions. So it enables them to connect and communicate quickly and effectively. And as the tangle grows, like I said, the transactions will get quicker. And one of the things with IOTA is a lot of people complain about how slow their transaction times are. And from my experience, I see this as a more of a thing because up until now, you can only really buy IOTA on Bitfinex, and Bitfinex has actually been the thing which is sort of bottlenecked up, not the IOTA tangle, but there have been reports of it going through on Bitfinex, but not on the IOTA chain. But so far, the only thing I can see a problem with is the actual Bitfinex servers. And one of the cool things is with IOTA, you theoretically have unlimited scalability. And so the thing which depends on the scalability, like I said before, is how big the network is. So the more people, the more devices that connect to the network, the faster and more efficient it gets. And because you have this, the only thing that really is holding you back is, or limiting you, is the speed of light. So these devices can communicate through electromagnetic waves which travel at the speed of light, which means that this is the one thing which theoretically stops the scalability, but to have scalability up to that point would just be insane, like astronomical. So I don't think we'll even ever get there. And also, like I just quickly mentioned before, quantum resistance. So they use the Winternitz signatures. Although it's not very relevant at the moment, it will be in 5-10 years. And it's something that a lot of cryptocurrencies, and specifically blockchains, do have to start thinking about over the next decade. So the community and the team behind IOTA, I've got the link here, but I'm not really going to click on it, only because there wasn't really many profiles that I could access for the team. They have a team of currently around, I think it's about 32 people in the IOTA Foundation. And although they don't have many profiles, the couple that I did visit did have a bit of previous experience in larger companies. But like I said in my list video, it's mostly about how the team performs and how they keep to their promises. And so far, they've been pretty consistent with what they're rolling out in their updates. So it's a solid team. It's not excellent, but it's a solid team nonetheless. And the community for IOTA has actually grown quite a lot recently. We've currently got 34,000 followers on Twitter and 44k readers on Reddit. And although this isn't a huge community, I think when I first wrote this slide, it was about probably last week, the Twitter only had about 26,000 followers and the Reddit only had about 30,000 readers. So in about a week, we've jumped up thousands and thousands and thousands in the community, which is a really good sign, because if we can even keep growing at a fraction of this rate, then we're going to have a huge community very soon. And also you can have access to the IOTA forums, which is full of discussion, information and tech support. And so to buy and store IOTA, first the wallet where you store it. This is one of the things which is probably not the best. The market and the exchanges are actually probably the two worst things about IOTA, because you're very limited, especially in the wallet. So the only real viable choice I would recommend is the official IOTA wallet, which is downloadable on GitHub. It's a desktop wallet, and it's pretty good. There's been some complaints about it with people not showing their funds and things like that, but often all you need to do, this is usually because your client is out of date, so you just need to go and upgrade to the new version. And in terms of the markets for IOTA, this is something which has really held it back for a long time. Even today, we haven't got that many exchanges on there. It was mostly Bitfinex up until recently, and we've just recently, pretty recently, got IOTA on Binance as well. And just very, very recently, CoinOne, a big Korean exchange, has just listed IOTA. And you can see some big volume coming out of Korea right now. And this is very good to see because Koreans are buying so much cryptocurrency at the moment. So it's really good for the future price of IOTA. Now the future of IOTA, on the roadmap, they've got quite a bit ahead of them. They're looking to adopt more coding languages, so just all the regular ones like Java, C++, Rust, Go, Python, and C#, which is really good because it enables a new sort of a new audience or a new range of developers to come and develop on their platform. They're looking to make something called a swarm client, which uses sharding to enable multiple devices to make transactions without becoming a full node. They've also, to increase efficiency, they're introducing auto snapshotting to reduce the load on the network. So you just take a snapshot of the tangle, you don't have to download the whole tangle. And perm nodes, so this is sort of related to that. So instead of snapshotting, these guys will have the whole tangle on their sort of on the node, but they will allow for snapshots to checkpoint the network to remove trust requirements and increase reliability of the network. Like I said before, they've got flash channels coming up, And then another thing is masked authenticated messaging, which is something which helps to encrypt data in a quantum-proof fashion, just like I talked about before. And also a privacy feature. They're not really decided on anything yet, but they're looking into options like zero-knowledge proofs, which is a very nice privacy feature. So my thoughts on IOTA is that it has a huge potential, but at the moment we're only at the start of the IoT, and we've got a lack of IoT devices available. And also there's a lot of misconceptions of IOTA holding it back, which I think I'll probably make a whole complete video regarding some of these misconceptions, because it's one of the things that really stops people from investing in this coin. The scalability and the quantum resistance are two really big sort of buying points for IOTA, especially in the future as it gets bigger and as it gets quantum proof, and also the low fees and the high speed, the future high speed are very good as well. I'd like to see it put onto some more exchanges so we can see some more liquidity and some newer audience come into this coin, because that's when we're really going to see mass adoption of this coin and see large growth. And also the big thing that we've just had recently, only probably last week, IOTA has just announced a new partnership with Microsoft plus like 20 other companies, which include like Samsung, Bosch, Fujitsu, other big companies like that, to create the first decentralized marketplace for data of the Internet of Things. And this is a huge thing. Even though it's just a partnership, to be partnered with all these companies, all these major companies, is a really big step in this cryptocurrency. And we can see the hype around it because it's been reflected in the price. And so now that I talk about the price, let's get into the technical analysis of a bit. And like I said before, we can see here, this is looking at a 30-minute chart. Lately we've been on a nice sort of bull run here with some reasonable volume. We sort of came up here and then we cooled off on the volume a little bit, but now we've got some nice consistent volume, even though we've started to pull back over this bull run a little bit. We can see there's still nice volume coming in. And so we had the announcement the other day, although I think it was probably about a week ago now, and we've had this big sort of stepping run up ever since, and we reached this point of nearly $3 from, just under $1 starting down here before we started the bull run. And it started to pull back. A lot of people probably bought into the FOMO, which is never a good thing to do. So it's pulled back to this 50-day moving average, and it's actually gone through this 50-day moving average. So short term, that's probably not a very good sign, but it's healthy for it to pull back, because once it gets too overstretched, the more overstretched it gets, the harder it will fall. We're running down on the RSI, but we're really getting close to overselling, so you better watch for that bottom if you want to buy in any. And also the MACD has just crossed over the negative, so we're just going to have to wait and see when that sort of curves back up. But in terms of a pattern, there's not really anything at the moment. We're just going to have to wait and see if this bounces back up and forms a head and shoulders. We might be on a bit of a down slope, but if it bounces off and keeps shooting back up, then we might be on a bit of a bull run for the next couple of months, because I think personally, two things could happen. It's kind of bad to say this, but it could be the binary opposites. For the next few months, we could either have all green for most of the altcoins and cryptocurrencies, or we could see something like a big 50% correction. But time will tell, and we're just going to have to wait it out and see. I do have IOTA in my wallets and in my portfolio at the moment. However, I'm not adding any at the moment because the market's sort of a bit overpriced for me, and even now it's sort of showing a bit of indecision. But I would wait for a pullback, just a slight pullback. I think it should sort of pull back down below the $2 mark. That's probably the best time to buy something, and if it pulls back even further, I'll just keep adding more and more to my portfolio, because I think it's going to have a very, very big 2018. And so that'll do it for this video. If you like this video or found it helpful, please leave a thumbs up and a comment below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button because I'll be bringing out future videos on future cryptocurrencies very, very soon. I'll catch you later.